My mother said the mortgage payment was $8,400 behind. If I couldn't help, they'd lose everything. I nodded and transferred the money that same night. 2 weeks later, I saw my brother's brand new Tesla Model S sitting in their driveway like a $60,000 middle finger pointed directly at my bank account. That's when I knew I'd been played for 8 years straight. My name is Sarah Chun, and I've been the family's personal ATM since I graduated college 8 years ago. 32 years old, software developer earning $95,000 annually in Portland, Oregon. The responsible one, the successful one, the one who never ever said no when family called with another emergency. My parents, David and Linda Chun, immigrated from Taiwan in 1985 with 2 suitcases and a dream of giving their future children better opportunities. I understood sacrifice. I respected their journey. What I didn't understand was how my gratitude had been weaponized into a systematic drainage every dollar I'd ever earned. I lived alone in my modest one-bedroom apartment on Southeast Division, paying $1,200 monthly rent while my younger brother Jake, 28 years old, occupied my childhood bedroom completely rent-free. My sister Maria, 30, had moved back into our parents' house twice after failed business ventures that I'd partially funded through what they called family loans, but what I now recognize as gifts with fictional repayment schedules. Both my siblings had college degrees that I'd helped finance. Jake's computer science degree from Portland State cost me $18,000 in emergency contributions when his financial aid fell through. Maria's business administration degree from University of Oregon required $12,000 when she couldn't afford her final year. They promised to pay me back once they got established in their careers. Jake worked part-time at GameStop, making $11 an hour and spending most of his paycheck on collectible action figures. Maria cycled through business ideas every 6 months, each one requiring startup capital that somehow came from my savings account. Her latest venture involved selling essential oils through social media, which lasted exactly 3 weeks before she moved on to cryptocurrency trading. The pattern never changed. A tearful phone call, usually after 9 p.m. when I'd be relaxing after work, a crisis requiring immediate funds. My conditioned response to open my banking app and transfer money without asking detailed questions. Family was family, right? Successful children supported their parents and helped their struggling siblings. That's what good daughters did. $2,000 for mom's medical procedure that I later discovered was cosmetic surgery to remove age spots from her hands and neck. $5,000 for Jake's job training program that turned out to be a cryptocurrency pyramid scheme run by someone called Crypto King Carlos. $3,500 for Maria's business equipment, a professional photography setup that she sold on Craigslist within a month because the photography market was oversaturated. $4,000 for Dad's heart surgery, expenses that insurance wouldn't cover, even though he had comprehensive coverage through his warehouse supervisor job. $2,800 for emergency car repairs that somehow required purchasing a completely different vehicle. $6,000 for various home repairs that never seemed to get completed, though the house always looked exactly the same when I visited. Each time, they promised repayment with specific timelines. We'll pay you back in 6 months when Dad gets his bonus. Maria's new business will be profitable by Christmas, then you'll get everything back with interest. Jake's job training will get him a $60,000 position, then he can pay his own way. Each time, I felt guilty for even mentioning money when they were obviously struggling. These were the people who'd sacrificed everything to give me opportunities. The least I could do was help them through tough times. I depleted my emergency fund 6 times in 3 years. My retirement contributions had stopped entirely because I couldn't afford to save for the future while funding their present crises. I drove a 10-year-old Honda Civic with 140,000 miles while watching my coworkers buy houses and plan European vacations. My dating life suffered because I couldn't afford nice restaurants or weekend trips. I wore the same 5 work outfits on rotation and bought generic groceries to stretch my budget, but I told myself this was temporary. Eventually, they'd get back on their feet. Eventually, I'd be able to focus on my own life. Eventually, all those loans would be repaid, and I'd have a nest egg that reflected 8 years of professional salary. The phone calls always came at night when I was tired and emotionally vulnerable. Mom's voice would crack with genuine sounding tears as she explained the latest catastrophe. Dad's hours had been cut again. The water heater had died and flooded the basement. Medical bills were piling up from his ongoing health issues. The car needed major repairs that they couldn't afford. They needed help, and I was the only family member in a position to provide it. "We hate to ask," Mom would always say, "but you're the only one we can count on. Your father is so proud of how successful you've become, but it breaks his heart that we still need your help at our age." The guilt was immediate and overwhelming. Here were my parents, both in their early 60s, working full-time jobs and still struggling to make ends meet. Here was I, single and childless with a good salary, complaining about helping the people who'd given me life and opportunity. What kind of selfish daughter puts her own comfort above her family's survival? So I always said yes. I always transferred the money. I always told myself that next time would be different, that next time I'd ask more questions or set up a formal repayment plan. But next time always looked exactly like this time, and my bank account kept shrinking while their crises kept multiplying. March 15th, 2024. I remember the exact date because I just finished filing my taxes, staring at my Wo-2 form and calculating how much money I should have saved based on my salary versus how much I actually had in my accounts. The math was depressing. $95,000 gross income, but only $3,200 in total savings across all my accounts. The call came at exactly 9:37 p.m., interrupting my Netflix binge watch of true crime documentaries. Ironic, considering I was about to become the victim of a very real crime. "Sarah, honey, I need to tell you something terrible." Mom's voice was thick with tears, her words broken by what sounded like genuine sobs. "I didn't want to worry you, but we've been trying to handle this ourselves for months." My heart immediately started racing. Medical emergency? Car accident? Someone hurt or dying? "What happened, Mom? Are you okay? Is Dad okay?" "We're okay physically, but Sarah, we're going to lose the house. We're 3 months behind on the mortgage payments, and the bank sent a foreclosure notice yesterday. We have exactly 10 days to pay $8,400, or they're starting proceedings to take everything." The words hit me like a physical blow. Their house wasn't just a building. It contained 30 years of memories. Every birthday party, every Christmas morning, every family dinner had happened in that house. The thought of my parents losing their home made my chest tighten with panic. "Mom, how did this happen?" I thought Dad was working full-time at the warehouse again after his recovery. He is, but you know how hard it's been since his heart surgery last year. The medical bills just ate up everything we'd saved. We've been using credit cards just to buy groceries and keep the utilities on. We kept thinking we'd catch up, but then the property taxes came due and the heating system needed repairs, and now we're drowning. Dad's heart surgery. The crisis that had cost me $4,000 in expenses that insurance wouldn't cover, plus another $2,000 for recovery supplies and home modifications. I'd maxed out my credit card and lived on ramen noodles for 2 months to help them through that medical emergency. "Have you talked to the bank about a payment plan? Maybe they'd be willing to work with you if you explain the situation." "We tried, sweetheart. They said our only option is to pay the full amount immediately or face foreclosure. We've exhausted every other possibility." I even asked Maria and Jake if they could contribute anything, but you know their situations. Of course they couldn't contribute. Maria was between business ventures again, and Jake had never held a full-time job in his adult life. As always, the burden fell to me. "I'll transfer the money tonight," I heard myself saying, even as my stomach churned at the thought of emptying my savings again. "Give me the account information for the mortgage company." "Oh, sweetheart, you're literally saving our lives. I don't know what we would have done. Your father doesn't know I called you. He's so proud. He didn't want to ask for help again so soon after his medical bills, but I knew you'd understand. You've always been our rock." I liquidated what remained of my emergency fund, transferred $8,400 from my savings account, and even pulled $500 from my checking account to cover the transaction fees. My total available money dropped to $237. But family was family, and I couldn't let my parents lose their home. 2 weeks later, I drove to their house in Southeast Portland for our usual Sunday family dinner, planning to discuss a realistic repayment schedule now that the crisis had passed. That's when I saw it. A gleaming white Tesla Model S parked in their driveway next to Dad's Ford F-150, gleaming like it had just rolled off the showroom floor. My hands went cold, gripping the steering wheel as I stared at the car. That vehicle cost a minimum of $60,000 new, even more if it had premium features. The lease payments alone would be $800 to $1,000 monthly. I sat in my dented Honda for several minutes, trying to reconcile what I was seeing with what I knew about my family's financial situation. Jake worked part-time retail, making maybe $15,000 annually. His credit had been destroyed by defaulted student loans and multiple unpaid debts. There was absolutely no way he qualified for a Tesla lease. "Oh, that's Jake's new car," Mom said casually when I walked into their kitchen, trying to keep my voice neutral as I asked about the Tesla. He finally found a decent job with benefits, and his credit improved enough to get approved for a lease. Got a really great deal through his company's employee program. Jake appeared from the living room, grinning widely and jingling a set of keys with the Tesla logo. "Pretty sweet, right? The acceleration is insane. 0 to 60 in 3.7 seconds. What's your new job?" I asked, genuinely curious about this miraculous career change. "I'm doing social media management for several local businesses. Turns out I have a real talent for digital marketing. The income is pretty solid, and it's all remote work, so I can still live here and save money." Social media management. Jake, who spent most of his time playing video games and collecting Pokemon cards, had suddenly become a digital marketing expert, earning enough to afford luxury car payments. That evening, lying on their lumpy sectional couch while Jake slept in my old bedroom, I couldn't stop running calculations in my head. $8,400 for emergency mortgage payments, $60,000 minimum for that Tesla, Dad's mysterious stable employment that apparently paid enough to afford mortgage payments, plus utilities, plus groceries, but somehow couldn't cover a 3-month shortfall. Mom's nursing job that she'd supposedly lost due to medical leave, but which she'd never mentioned getting back. The numbers didn't add up. Nothing added up. At 3 a.m., unable to sleep and driven by suspicions I'd never allowed myself to acknowledge, I did something completely out of character. I slipped into Dad's home office and opened his computer. Dad had never been tech-savvy, and his password was still Sarah 1991, the year. I graduated high school and made him prouder than he'd ever been. The computer opened immediately, displaying a desktop cluttered with financial documents and family photos. What I found in the next 2 hours destroyed everything I believed about my family and my role in their lives. The mortgage wasn't behind. Bank statements going back 18 months showed that it had been current consistently, with automatic payments withdrawn on the 15th of every month. No missed payments, no late fees, no foreclosure proceedings. But that was just the beginning of my discoveries. Dad's employment records showed he'd been promoted to warehouse supervisor 8 months ago, earning $52,000 annually, information that contradicted every conversation about his reduced hours and struggling to find steady work. Mom's nursing license was active, and payroll stubs indicated she'd been working full-time at Providence Medical Center for over a year, earning $48,000 annually. Combined household income, $100,000. More than enough to cover their mortgage, utilities, and living expenses comfortably. Hidden in a folder labeled Tax Documents 2023 were spreadsheets that made my blood run cold. Column headers read date, amount requested, story used, Sarah's response, and next request timeline. 3 years of data tracking my contributions with clinical precision. February 14th, 2022, $2,000. Mom's medical procedure. Sarah transferred immediately without questions. Wait 60 days before next request. April 21st, 2022, $5,000. Jake's job training program. Sarah Max credit card. Appears to be maximum single request amount. Space Future requests is smaller. July 3rd, 2022, $3,500. Maria's business equipment. Sarah hesitated initially, but transferred within 24 hours after guilt follow-up call. Entry after entry documenting my emotional responses and financial limits like I was a laboratory experiment. Notes included observations about my guilt threshold, my maximum emergency fund depletion tolerance, and my optimal request timing for maximum compliance. $47,000 over 3 years. Nearly $50,000 extracted through fake emergencies and manufactured crises. But the spreadsheet wasn't the worst discovery. In his email folders, I found correspondence that revealed the full scope of their deception. Email thread between Mom and Maria, dated 6 months earlier. We need to keep Sarah invested or she might start asking questions. Her savior complex is our safety net, but we can't push too hard or she gets suspicious. Space out the requests and make sure she feels needed. What about the mortgage story? That's a big ask. Perfect timing. She just got her tax refund, so she has available funds. The foreclosure angle will trigger her panic response. She won't think logically when she believes we might lose the house. Should we involve Jake? He's been helpful with suggestions. His idea about crying during phone calls has been very effective. Jake's contributions to the family group text chain, which I've never been included in. Sarah's getting suspicious about my employment situation. Should I get a fake job to make the Tesla story more believable? No need. Just mention social media marketing. It's vague enough that she won't ask for details. LOL, she actually believes I'm making enough money for car payments. She's so gullible. Don't get cocky. We need her to keep funding our lifestyle for at least another year until Maria's OnlyFans account takes off. Maria had an OnlyFans account. My sister, who I'd been supporting through various business ventures, was earning money through online adult content while letting me pay for her living expenses. The final piece of evidence was the most devastating, a voice recording on Dad's phone from a conversation with Mom. Accidentally saved when he pocket-dialed his voicemail. I almost feel bad about taking Sarah's money again, Dad's voice said clearly. Don't, Mom replied. She makes more than we do, and she doesn't have kids or a mortgage. It's not like she needs that money for anything important. Besides, we raised her, fed her, paid for her education. She owes us, but $8,000 is a lot, even for her. She pay it. She always does. Sarah's too guilty about being successful to ever say no to family. Her bleeding heart is our retirement plan. I sat in Dad's office chair, staring at evidence of the most sophisticated emotional manipulation I'd ever encountered. Every tearful phone call had been theater. Every crisis had been fiction. Every expression of gratitude had been calculated to ensure my continued compliance. My family had been systematically defrauding me for 3 years, using my love and loyalty as weapons against my financial security. They'd studied my responses, optimized their requests, and turned my generosity into their personal income stream. I screenshot everything. Bank statements showing their actual financial stability, email threads revealing the conspiracy. Text messages documenting their laughter at my expense. Spreadsheets tracking my exploitation with mathematical precision. Voice recordings proving their premeditation. By dawn, I had a comprehensive file documenting $47,000 in fraudulent emergency requests, plus evidence of identity theft when I discovered Jake had opened 2 credit cards in my name, using my social security number and their address. I drove home in complete silence, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Thank you again for saving our home, sweetheart. You're our angel." I didn't respond. I couldn't trust myself to form words that wouldn't reveal how completely my world had just shattered. The next week passed in a blur of research, phone calls, and legal consultations. I took 3 personal days from work, telling my manager I had a family emergency, which was technically true, just not the kind of emergency my family would have preferred. My best friend Marcus, a financial advisor who'd watched me struggle with money while supporting my needy family, listened to my discoveries with increasing anger and disbelief. "Sarah, this isn't just family drama. This is organized crime. They've been running a long-term fraud operation with you as the target." He reviewed the evidence on my laptop, shaking his head at the spreadsheets. "Look at this planning. Look at this coordination. They've stolen your entire financial future." I keep thinking I must be overreacting, I admitted. It's my family. Maybe they really were desperate and just didn't know how to tell me the truth. "Desperate people don't keep spreadsheets tracking their lives," Marcus said firmly. "Desperate people don't coordinate their stories in group texts. Desperate people don't laugh about their victim being gullible. Sarah, you're not overreacting. You're underreacting." He helped me calculate the true cost of their deception. $47,000 in direct theft. $6,800 in credit card debt Jake had accumulated in my name. Approximately $15,000 in lost investment growth if I'd been able to contribute to retirement accounts instead of funding their lifestyle. Plus the opportunity costs of delaying homeownership, retirement savings, and personal goals. Total financial damage, nearly $70,000. "You could have bought a house," Marcus said quietly. "You could have had a 6-month emergency fund, a robust retirement account, and money for travel and experiences. Instead, they've kept you living paycheck to paycheck while they upgraded their lifestyle with your earnings." Elena Rodriguez, the family law attorney I consulted, studied my documentation with professional fascination and personal outrage. In 20 years of practice, I've rarely seen financial elder abuse this sophisticated and well-documented, she said during our 90-minute consultation. "Your family has been systematically defrauding you using advanced emotional manipulation techniques. These text messages, emails, and recordings constitute clear evidence of conspiracy to commit wire fraud. What are my legal options?" I asked, still hoping there might be a solution that didn't involve destroying my family relationships permanently. "Criminal charges for wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. Civil recovery for damages plus punitive awards. Restraining orders to prevent future contact and manipulation. Given the level of premeditation and coordination, this qualifies as organized criminal activity." She paused, studying my face carefully. "But Sarah, you need to understand the consequences. Pursuing this legally will end your relationship with your family permanently. They'll face criminal charges, potential jail time, and financial ruin. Are you prepared for that level of fallout?" "They already ended our relationship," I replied, surprised by the steadiness of my own voice. "They just didn't tell me. I've been having a relationship with fictional characters they created to manipulate me. The real versions of my family are strangers who view me as a revenue stream." Elena helped me organize the evidence for a law enforcement presentation. We created a timeline of fraudulent requests, documented the identity theft, and prepared financial statements showing the damage to my credit and savings. The evidence was overwhelming and clearly admissible. During my financial audit, we discovered additional violations I hadn't even noticed. Jake had been using my name and social security number to open utility accounts, apparently providing my information as a reference for various services. My credit report showed inquiries I'd never authorized and accounts I'd never opened. The identity theft was extensive and ongoing, requiring immediate intervention to prevent further damage. Detective James Murphy at Portland Police Bureau's Financial Crimes Division reviewed my case with the serious attention it deserved. We investigate financial elder abuse regularly, but this pattern of targeting an adult child is equally prosecutable under Oregon fraud statutes. He assured me during our 2-hour interview, the evidence shows clear premeditation, conspiracy, and systematic exploitation. This meets every criteria for felony prosecution. How strong is the case? I asked. With this level of documentation, it's airtight. Electronic communications, financial records, voice recordings, spreadsheets tracking the criminal activity. Prosecutors dream about cases this well documented. He paused. The challenge will be emotional, not legal. These are your parents and siblings. Are you certain you want to proceed? They made this choice when they decided to defraud me, I replied. I'm just documenting their decisions. The district attorney's office agreed to pursue charges when presented with the evidence. Assistant Day Jennifer Walsh explained that cases involving family members often resulted in plea bargains, but the sophistication and scope of this particular fraud warranted full prosecution. 3 family members systematically defrauding a 4th family member, using emotional manipulation and identity theft, represents exactly the kind of financial crime we prosecute aggressively. She explained, the victims in these cases often suffer long-term financial and emotional damage that extends far beyond the immediate monetary loss. I spent 2 weeks preparing for what I knew would be the most difficult conversation of my life. The family had scheduled another Sunday dinner, and Mom had already called twice to mention that Jake needed $4,000 for a business opportunity that required upfront investment in cryptocurrency mining equipment. The usual script was playing out perfectly. Crisis manufactured, solution requiring my money. Emotional pressure applied through family obligation and manufactured urgency. I arrived at their house on April 7th, carrying a manila folder containing printed copies of everything, screenshots organized chronologically, bank statements highlighting the discrepancies, email threads revealing the conspiracy, text messages showing their coordination, voice recordings transcribed professionally. 3 years of systematic deception laid out in incontrovertible detail. The family gathered in their living room, the same space where we'd celebrated birthdays and holidays, where I'd received hugs of gratitude after every financial rescue. Mom sat on the couch wearing the expensive jewelry I'd unknowingly purchased through my emergency contributions. Dad relaxed in his recliner, looking comfortable and well-fed despite his supposed financial struggles. Jake sprawled in my old bedroom doorway, car keys visible in his pocket. Maria video called from her apartment, ready to participate in the latest extraction operation. Before we discussed Jake's business opportunity, I said calmly, setting the evidence folder on their coffee table, let's talk about the $47,000 you've collectively stolen from me over the past 3 years. The room went completely silent. Color drained from Mom's face like she'd seen a ghost. Dad's comfortable expression shifted to confusion, then recognition, then fear. Jake dropped his phone, the sound echoing in the sudden quiet. Maria's video call froze with her mouth open mid-sentence. Sarah, what are you talking about? Mom's voice was steady now, the practiced tears mysteriously absent. Her tone had shifted to the careful control of someone caught in a lie. We're family. We help each other. That's what families do. I opened the folder and began reading from Jake's text messages. LOL, she actually believes. I'm making enough money for car payments. She's so gullible. Then Maria's email. Her savior complex is our safety net, but we can't push too hard or she gets suspicious. Dad's face turned red with anger, but not the shame I'd expected. Sarah, you had no right to go through my private computer. That's a violation of privacy. You had no right to go through my private bank account, I replied evenly. You had no right to open credit cards in my name. You had no right to systematically defraud me for 3 years. I read Mom's voice recording. Sarah's too guilty about being successful to ever say no to family. Her bleeding heart is our retirement plan. Those conversations were taken out of context. Mom protested, her manipulative mask finally slipping completely. You don't understand the pressure we've been under. I understand that your mortgage has been current for 18 months, I replied, producing the bank statements. I understand that you're both employed full-time, earning a combined $100,000 annually. I understand that every emergency was fiction designed to drain my savings. Jake found his voice, his tone shifting to aggressive defensiveness. So what if we exaggerated some situations? You make more money than any of us. You don't have kids or a mortgage. It's not like you were using that money for anything important. Important to whom? I asked. I've been living paycheck to paycheck for 3 years, while funding your Tesla payments and Mom's cosmetic surgery and Maria's business failures. I couldn't afford to buy a house, save for retirement, or plan for my own future because I was too busy funding your lifestyle. Maria's voice came through the phone speaker. Sarah, you're being dramatic. We always intended to pay you back eventually. This is just temporary help during hard times. I produced the spreadsheet tracking their lies. This document shows 3 years of premeditated fraud. You tracked my emotional responses, calculated my financial limits, and optimized your manipulation techniques. This isn't family helping family. This is organized crime. The room erupted in simultaneous arguments. Dad shouted about family loyalty and privacy violations. Mom sobbed that she'd raised me better than this and couldn't believe I'd turn against my own family over money. Jake accused me of destroying the family because I was jealous of his success. Maria screamed through the phone that I was selfish and vindictive. I'm filing criminal charges tomorrow morning, I announced, standing to leave. I've already consulted with the district attorney's office, and they're prosecuting this as felony fraud with conspiracy enhancements. The argument stopped immediately. The room went silent except for the sound of Maria crying through the video call. You wouldn't, Mom whispered. We're your family. You can't send your own parents to jail. You already sent yourselves to jail, I replied, closing the evidence folder. You just haven't been processed yet. I've also obtained a restraining order prohibiting contact with me. If any of you attempt to call, text, email, or visit me, you'll be arrested for violation of a protection order. Dad stood up, his face purple with rage. If you do this, you're no longer our daughter. We'll disown you completely. You'll have no family left. I already have no family, I said, walking toward their front door for what I knew would be the last time. I just didn't know it until 2 weeks ago. Their reaction told me everything I needed to know about who they really were when their masks finally came off completely. The legal process moved quickly with such comprehensive evidence. Detective Murphy's investigation took only 3 weeks to complete, with additional discoveries that strengthened the case further. Financial forensics revealed that my parents had been coordinating similar schemes with extended family members, extracting smaller amounts from cousins and aunts through manufactured emergencies. The district attorney's office prosecuted the case aggressively. My parents were charged with multiple counts of wire fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, and financial exploitation. Jake faced additional charges for identity theft and credit fraud. Maria avoided criminal charges by agreeing to cooperate fully with the prosecution and pay complete restitution for her portion, $11,200 she'd extracted through various business emergencies. The trial lasted 4 days in October. I testified for 6 hours, walking the jury through the evidence methodically. The prosecution presented the case as a sophisticated criminal enterprise designed to exploit family relationships for financial gain. Defense attorneys tried to portray it as a misunderstanding between family members, but the documentary evidence was overwhelming. My parents were convicted on all charges and received 18 months in prison, followed by 3 years of probation, plus restitution orders totaling $62,000, including damages and legal fees. Jake received 2 years in county jail plus 5 years probation. All three were ordered to have no contact with me for 10 years. More importantly for my daily life, the restraining order meant no more midnight calls about emergencies, no more emotional manipulation, no more access to my life, my finances, or my peace of mind. I used the first restitution payment as a down payment on a small house in Southeast Portland, my first real investment in my own future rather than someone else's lies. My new position at a tech startup pays $120,000 annually, and for the first time in my adult life, every dollar I earn stays mine unless I choose otherwise. The psychological impact of freedom from their manipulation was immediate and profound. No more anxiety when my phone rang after 9 p.m. No more guilt about having money in my savings account. No more wondering which manufactured crisis would drain my emergency fund next. No more living paycheck to paycheck while supporting people who viewed my financial success as their personal entitlement. Friends worried I'd regret cutting ties with my family permanently. Instead, I discovered what genuine peace feels like. My sleep improved. My work performance increased. My social life expanded as I could finally afford to participate in activities and travel with colleagues. I met David Martinez 8 months after the trial concluded. He's a general contractor who thinks my financial independence and strong boundaries are attractive qualities rather than challenges to exploit. We're planning a wedding funded by my actual savings money that grows through investment rather than disappearing into other people's manufactured emergencies. Sometimes I drive past the house where I grew up, now sporting a for sale sign as my parents prepare to downsize to an apartment they can actually afford on their legitimate income. I feel no satisfaction in their legal troubles, only profound relief that I'm no longer financing their deceptions. The best revenge wasn't getting even or proving them wrong. The best revenge was getting free. My story isn't unique. Financial exploitation by family members happens every day, hidden behind cultural expectations of loyalty and obligation. But documentation defeats manipulation every single time. Evidence speaks louder than tears, and legal consequences last longer than guilt trips. I learned that being the responsible one doesn't mean being the victim. It means being responsible for yourself first and letting other adults handle their own manufactured emergencies. What do you think? Did I go too far or not far enough? Would you have been able to send your own family to prison for stealing your financial future?